It's time for Caravaggio, part 4, where we finally find out if Caravaggio is still alive, living in downtown New Jersey, where he has a co-op where he raises sheep with his twin brother. Take it away, Kelly.
And welcome back to another riveting episode of Arts and Crimes.
No, it's renamed CaravaggiOPodcast.com.
That's all we do now.
Yep.
That's it. Hours and hours of Caravaggio.
No.
But in all seriousness, this is the final episode of Caravaggio. I know you'll miss him when he's gone, but he has been dead for a long time. Spoiler alert, he is not living in New Jersey with his twin brother because he doesn't have a twin brother and he's dead.
Is Caravaggio the guy we were going to dig up his bones?
Yes.
Okay.
And take it to the bone throne.
Yeah, he's the one. I think that we were supposed to find a few dead people, but I think Caravaggio's the...
But then Nicolas Cage turned us down for Treasure...
Yeah.
What was the name of that?
National Treasure?
National Treasure.
National Treasure 3.
Yeah. We caked...
The boning egg.
The boning egg.
Yeah, it didn't work out.
We're going to have to steal Caravaggio's bones.
What do you think would be like the reason we would need Caravaggio's bones?
That's a good one. The plot would be that we have identified, using algorithms and AI, patterns in the artwork of Caravaggio which indicate that he is in fact an alien. We need to get his bones and DNA sequence them using clues that are in the artwork. It will bring him back to life and then start a golden age of cloned immortality living life.
And then the
In New
end of the
Jersey.
story and then the end of the story is morally we decide that's wrong, but only after we do it once, and he moves to Jersey and raises sheep with his twin brother.
Yeah, exactly.
Which
Who
is
is
his
his
clone.
Dun, dun, dun.
So if anybody wants to pick up that film, Nicolas Cage, I hope you're listening.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's my stuff that's going on this week. It's the AP portfolio is due for my students this week. And I had to do a raku fire this week. And I have been super late every day coming home because I'm working on like helping my students do stuff. And so I am tired. I'm very tired. Anyway, so I'm a bad teacher. And that's how my week is gone.
I don't think you're a bad teacher.
Oh, thank you.
I think you're a good teacher.
Oh, thank you. I don't know if any evidence you have of that, but I appreciate it.
Well, I hear all the time how great of a teacher you are.
From me.
No, from like the...
Comments on the pod.
Yeah. I'm trolling a lot of the pod comments, and boy, oh boy. No. Like,
I've been posting the pod to TikTok 1 minute at a time. And I get some replies from your students.
All the time.
Yeah.
They're not even on TikTok anymore, right? Isn't there some new cool thing or
Oh,
whatever?
they're definitely on TikTok.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
TikTok is insane.
Man, I don't know anything about nothing.
Here's what you need to know about TikTok.
Okay.
It literally destroys your brain.
They've calculated it.
It's not like, this is not a joke. ByteDance, the company that make TikTok, in a lawsuit was forced to reveal these internal documents where they're like, it causes permanent damage to retention, memory, attention span, like
Causes
all
anxiety.
of this stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know,
But they like develop it that way because it is addictive.
because it's addictive. Yeah. Their goal is to be addictive. So
Yeah, and they're achieving it.
Mission accomplished.
Yep. So yes, if you did put it on TikTok a minute at a time, that probably would work.
They'd love it.
Yeah. I also was talking to my coworkers today. Not today. It was sometime within the last 3 weeks. I can't remember when. But I was telling them that I was going to put all of my lectures and demos on like TikTok as like TikToks, and then just make my students scroll my class as a TikTok. Not so that I could get a bunch of views, but so that they would actually listen and watch the demos.
Oh, you young folk. And
I don't think I'm included in that.
No, you're not.
Okay.
Who were you saying you to?
Yeah, I thought you were talking to me.
The young listeners.
Okay.
The people out there who are ticking and talking. And just...
on your phone squares and your noise boxes.
We're off to a really good start.
Good.
Which is going to go so well with my week.
Listen, I have a question.
Oh, yeah.
How was your week, Brandon?
Well, let me tell you. So actually, this week, I don't really have a lot of things that I'm proud of that I got done or whatever. It's been insane at work and stuff, and I just been feeling like I just can't make things come together. And what I have discovered is sleep is so important. I'm serious though, you know, I mean, I used to get 5 or 6 hours of sleep a night and be pretty okay with that, and it just isn't true anymore.
Oh no.
Yeah, I'm an old man.
An old man.
But it's crazy how much of a difference it makes in just like my ability to deal with the world and to feel better. So, like, yeah, I got up. I had just been feeling crappy, and over this weekend I tried to get more sleep. And about Tuesday morning I got up and I was just like, I feel so different.
In a good way?
Yeah, in a good way. Like, so I'm putting a plug in there, kids. For
Today's episode sponsored by Sleep.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Okay.
Well, it goes with yours.
It does.
Right?
Yeah, it's good. It's good for you. This is. Okay, I just remembered.
It's good for your bones.
I just
Why
remembered.
am I doing this voice?
I like it. It's theatrical. It feels like a like a monster truck rally commercial. Voice.
Kind of does.
This Sunday.
Get some sleep. In your bed, in the middle of the night, with your eyes closed. You can see all those sheep going over that fence while you snooze in dreamland. See the crusher in your dreams. Squashing 15 cars with your principal from your grade school.
That's good.
All right.
Okay, this really quick.
I am going to nominate that as the joke at the end.
At the Here we go.
We're ready. Okay, so how did my week go? Let me tell you guys. All right, so here's the problem. I was using TikTok
When we don't get sleep, do not blame me.
to send all of these minute-long TikToks of the pod to reach the youth where they are. And I was like, I'm using my phone too much. So I got myself a minimal phone that has an e-ink screen and a QWERTY keyboard on it. And now I'm living in the past and loving it.
Welcome back, 90s.
The 90s didn't
What
have
company
e-ink.
made this?
It was just like a little, it was crowdfunded.
Was it early 2000s?
Yeah, probably early 2000s.
Yeah. Welcome back, early 2000s.
Yep. Okay, do that one. That was the best one so far.
Okay, perfect. Okay. Okay.
All right, Caravaggio. We're talking about Caravaggio, the man, the myth, the legend who never slept, and that's why he's dead.
Another plug for sleep. Okay, but alrighty. So you guys recall at the end of the last one.
Oh wait, let me guess. Caravaggio, at the end of the last one, he got in a fight with a man who was a mercenary, cut off his finger, and fed it to the wolves.
Yeah.
No, what were you doing? That's not it at all.
Carry on.
But he did fight a mercenary, and he beat the mercenary. No fingers
Sure
or
did.
wolves were mentioned, but he did. I mean, maybe. There's no written proof that didn't happen. Probably not wolves in Rome, though.
Did you ever think about how painful it would be to be slashed in the face?
I
As they
haven't
did back then.
given it a lot of thought.
I got a paper cut the other day, and I was like, imagine if this was way worse and across my whole face.
You're like, I understand their pain.
Yeah. I was actually thinking this, that I'm like super coddled because I very rarely injure myself nowadays. When I was a kid, I was constantly getting hurt and breaking bones and getting stitches. And now I got a paper cut and I was like, what if this was my whole face?
This is how it ends.
Yeah, anyway, sorry. Continue.
Yeah, so that kind of stuff was happening. And he was also getting like so injured from duels and fights that he could like hardly walk and stuff. Like just a man of violence. So it happened a lot.
Of violins.
Continue.
Anyways.
That's really great.
Anyways, so we kind of wrapped.
You know what's fun? Is that Brandon trusts me enough. I've earned his trust enough for him to make fun of me to my face.
to your
Stupid
Brad Pitt beautiful
Yeah.
face.
with a big old paper cut on it.
You know, I saw something just this week that was like talking about how relationships that have teasing are typically like really healthy and like positive relationships.
Well, prepare to get tuzzed. You piece of trash.
Truly, our relationship is so positive.
I want a shirt that says, well, prepare to get toast. That'll be our first shirt
Can you
in the merch store.
make a hillbilly version of Josh to put on there? Prepare to get toast.
But he'll sort of look like Brad Pitt.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there you go.
Go to-
Hillbilly Brad Pitt is Josh. That's probably what Grandma meant. She didn't say the whole thing. You look like Brad Pitt if he were a hillbilly.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Sounds about
And
right.
then she thought, that last part's mean.
She just left it out.
Okay, so where we left off,
All right, well, it's Caravaggio.
we're not past page 1.
How many pages are there?
7.
All right, let's go.
Okay.
Okay.
Blast through page 1. Super speed. Go.
Okay, here we go. So, if you remember where we left off,
Yes, he cut off a guy's finger.
Gosh dang it.
Sorry.
I'm crying.
Well, it's not even that funny.
It's not what you said that's funny. It's that you did it. Such a Josh joke.
With the perfect Brandon follow-up. Gosh dang it. Oh, man. All right. So last time we ended where he was having that like slanderous poetry that he got taken to
rap
jail
battle.
for. Yeah, the rap
Yeah.
battle. But right at the end, the charges got dropped either because they didn't have enough evidence or because he had those connections.
Or because his rhymes were so sick.
Yeah, I mean, mad respect,
They
right?
had to respect. Yeah.
You
Yes,
can't.
very fair.
That's one of the laws written in court. If the licks are sick enough, can't go to jail. So immediately after he's released from prison, he receives a commission from Orinza Cavalletti. He was called on to paint the altarpiece depicting the Madonna of Loreto. And he needed this commission and many others. But at the same time, he was tending not to finish work on time at this point in his life. So he sort of like pushed really hard to get into the good graces of all these really high up church people. And he's getting the commissions for altarpieces, and he's done a few, and now they're asking for more. And he's starting to not hit deadlines. He's not finishing paintings. He's becoming fairly unreliable in that sense. But he's still receiving commissions. And so he also receives a commission for an altarpiece to do the Death of the Virgin. So during 1603 to 1606, he only received 3 commissions of large-scale religious paintings. But during this time...
Are we supposed to know who the Virgin is?
Yeah.
Is it Mary?
Yeah.
Okay. I was like, how many famous virgins are there?
I mean, that's the only one I know of.
Okay. I was just checking.
Yeah, no, you were correct. And the painting itself was embroiled in just so much drama and debate. And what's that word when things are bad and dramatic?
Controversy?
There it is. How are you so good at this word game, Brandon?
I don't know.
And I think I talk about it a little bit later when he actually finishes it, because I think it makes more sense later. So anyways, during 1603 to 1606, he only received 3 commissions of these like large scale religious paintings. And he kept seeing paintings of what he considered to be like lesser talented people. He kept seeing painters of a lesser caliber than he was, getting jobs that he wanted, getting commissions that he wanted. And so in this time, he's very tumultuous, and that didn't help. So he became like more aggressive. And so you start seeing him having more court cases and that kind of stuff. And one such response happened to a painter that received a commission that Caravaggio had wanted. And so in response, he went to go see the painting that the guy had done, and he peeked under the curtain and thought it was no good. And so he sliced a hole in the canvas and then stuck his head through the hole where the face would be, just to like, I don't know, mess with it even further. But it was like reported, which I think is like, haha, except for that guy spent like a lot of hours on the painting. But Caravaggio didn't care because it just was of lesser quality for him, in his opinion. And he is a man of action.
I see why he's your favorite.
Right?
And I can say confidently, I would not like this guy.
Just wait, it gets better.
Oh, boy.
So on April 24th in 1604, he was out dining with some friends. And they ordered a couple platters of artichokes. And the waiter brought them, and Caravaggio asked which was cooked in oil and which was in butter, because there was 2 different plates cooked 2 different ways. And there's 2 testimonies given, because this went to court. And so we have the records. So here's what the waiter says in his police report. I replied, "Smell them, and you will easily know which are cooked in butter and which in oil." Thereupon, he flew into a rage, and without further words, seized an earthen plate and flung it at my face. It hit me here in the left cheek, wounding me slightly. Then he got up and snatched the sword of one of his companions, which was lying on the table, perhaps with intent to strike me. And that's what the waiter said. And then his friend testified. The waiter said, "I don't know," and the waiter said, "I don't know," and picked one up and put it to his nose. Michelangelo took it badly and sprang to his feet in rage, saying, "It seems to me," oh, I forgot to edit this one, "it seems to me, you screwed-over cuckold, that you think you're speaking to some kind of vulgar provincial baron." And he seized the plate and threw it at the waiter's face. I did not see Michelangelo grasp the sword to threaten the waiter. So, either way, he flew into a rage over the artichokes. And
you know why? He wasn't getting enough sleep.
Yeah, probably not, though, genuinely.
Yeah, I mean, it did seem like this guy is
He's
just burning the candle at both ends.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and so Despite being in constant fights like this and at odds with the law constantly, he did manage to complete at least one painting during these 3 years where he received these commissions. And it was the Entombment, and it was considered one of his best works. Which I was like, well, I mean, that's kind of cool that he did finish one and it was considered one of his best works. But he only did the one when he has all these other commissions. So, but by October, he was back in prison again because he and his friends were accused of throwing stones at police, which they were doing. Then
Just like as a prank?
I'm mad, I guess. I don't know. There's so many times where they do things where I go, sir, you knew better. This is just silly. Don't throw stones at the police. And then on the eve of the new Pope's coronation, he was in jail again for bearing arms without a license, which he was also in jail frequently for. And then again, 6 weeks later after that, for defacing doors. Like he just was like mad at people and defaced their doors. And then some months later, Caravaggio was accused of an assault. So a notary named Mariano Pascaloni accused Caravaggio of grievous bodily harm. And in the police report, he went straight to the police instead of going to the hospital. So he's actively bleeding from a head wound. But he said that he didn't see his attacker, but it could have only been Caravaggio since that's the only person that he knew that he had a beef with. In his testimony, he says the feud was about Messer Sertorio Teofilo. So this is a lady, and in the feud, he calls her Michelangelo's woman. So essentially, Michelangelo is mad at him because of the feud with this guy and the woman. And he uses, so in the testimony, he says that he did something to offend Michelangelo's woman. And in the way he uses the verb, it's not how you would say a professional or like a relationship, like they were dating, but it's more of a professional relationship. Like it was Caravaggio's woman. And the idea was that he was always walking around, and this is where like some of the theories come from and some of the evidences are, that he was always walking around at night armed and like frequently at night at these late hours, that Caravaggio was actually like a pimp and was like a fierce protector of his women because he used them as models for his paintings. So he would have access to them, he would take care of them, he would protect them. And then, there's extra bonuses that I am sure he enjoyed. But it also like extra money on the side when he wasn't selling paintings and that kind of stuff. And so they think that he was, out doing this nightlife, like protecting these women and being their kind of pimp. And so some of the fights that he was getting into constantly were art related, and sometimes they were because of this sort of stuff. So he was living this like dual life.
How sure are they of this? They're
like moderately sure. So it's not a fact, but they're like, we're pretty sure he was doing this.
All right.
And
this is your favorite artist, you say?
Yeah, one of them for sure.
Okay.
He gets worse. And then he was, and then in the guy's testimony, he's like, I offended Caravaggio's woman, but can I stop so I can go take care of this bleeding head wound? And the police officer is like, fine. And they ask his friend, and the friend's like, yeah, it like could only be Caravaggio, and Caravaggio didn't show up for it. And then right after that, Caravaggio was also accused of defacing property. So he was accused of assault and defacing property. And so Caravaggio skipped bail and fled. And while he was gone, his landlady decided to get what she was owed because Caravaggio was also 6 months behind on his rent. So she went to his house because she had keys, obviously, and she took all of his stuff, including the paintings he was working on. And then she changed all the locks. And so he came back and he decided that he would sign this judicial peace for the assault and the damages, and had to like officially apologized to the guy, and so he was fine to come back and good to go. But he went back to his apartment to find his stuff, and it was all gone, and the locks were changed. So 4 days after signing this, like, I'm sorry, I'll be good, he's arrested again for throwing rocks through his landlady's window, or his former landlady's window. But it appeared to get handled because there wasn't a lot of court cases and stuff about it. And they're pretty sure that it was from the influence of his the church that had been asking him to paint all of these commissions, because they wanted him to get back to work on working on these commissions. And then one of them even gave him an advance of money so that he could work on it. And then Caravaggio took that money but never actually finished the painting ever. So that guy just never got a painting. And so he moved to a new place. He was living in a new place. And they had hoped that would help, but it really didn't. Yeah, it didn't help because immediately after he gets in another fight. And this one, he's the one that gets seriously injured. So I don't know who he was fighting because there's no report, because he's seriously injured and he's like at his place and he's got a cut on his throat and his ear. So it was like, could have been deadly. But when the police come to talk to him, he's quoted as saying, "I wounded myself with my own sword when I fell down these stairs. I don't know where it was, and there was no one there." And so he just was like, "I don't know what happened. I fell down, and I had a sword in my hand." And so the police couldn't do anything besides have that report, and then left. He still maintained his contacts with the church, and he received even more commissions. This one for the Madonna of Palafreniere.
Palafreniere. How do you say that in French?
Palafreniere, or sometimes it's called the Madonna of the Serpent, which is what I know it of.
Madonna of the Serpent. Is that another sex worker?
I think she was, yeah. But now I get your joke. It took me a minute.
I think that's a character in Blade Runner.
The reason it's called that is because it has the Madonna holding...
A serpent?
It does have a serpent in it, yeah.
Yes! I win the art! Give me 5. I'm out of here! I'm the best artist knower.
Good job.
I know all the art. I can guess. Just if you tell me the name, I can tell you what's in it, probably. Give me another name. Give me another name in English. And I'll tell you what the art is.
Okay. I'll tell you in just a minate. Because we get to a few, so guess...
Right. I'm waiting.
We'll come back to you, Josh.
This is me rubbing my hands together.
But there is actually, just to finish, for the people that don't have the skill that you have,
yeah,
I'll explain it to them. There is the Madonna, which is also the Virgin, she's standing there with the Christ child, and they're both stepping on the head of a serpent.
The child and her are both stepping on the head of a serpent together.
You know how, like, when you are a little kid and you have... or you are around little kids and you can have them stand on your feet and then you walk. Mm-hmm. And like they kind of walk with them you. Like that. Yeah. So it's sort of like that. Like his foot is on top of her foot and she's squishing the serpent head. But it was like, okay. So this is the first of some major blows to Caravaggio's pride, which, as we know, he's a very proud man.
Yes.
And so this matters to him. So he delivered the painting and they took a look at it and they're like, okay, the Madonna, serpent. And then they look and her cup runneth over the top of her dress because she's like leaning down and she's very bosomy. And so you can see like quite a bit of her. And they don't like that. And there was a couple other things I don't remember.
They were like, why did you make the Virgin so hot?
Kind of. And so they really didn't like it. So they put it up, they unveil it, and then they're like, oh no. And they take it back down and reject the painting. And he's like, this hurts my pride. But I'm not going to say that in words. I'm going to go do violence. Then he goes and does some more violence. But despite that setback, he continues in his style because he's nothing if not Caravaggio through and through. And so he finishes the overdue altarpiece that we talked about the Death of the Virgin.
Right.
Hold on.
Can you tell us what's in it?
I bet there's a virgin in it.
You are.
And, hold on, probably some kind of death that's happening.
Yeah, I think you've nailed it.
Maybe even to the virgin.
Yeah. So, the painting, there's a lot to dispute about it. So first, once again, he used a sex worker as a model, which people didn't love because they could also sometimes recognize the sex worker. So
Hold on, isn't that kind of a catch-22 though?
She wasn't that good. Why is there a painting of her?
Like, some guy is in the church pew with his wife, and he leans over and goes, I think I know the girl in that painting. And his wife goes, oh, really? How do you know? I mean, from just, she was
the library. The sex worker thing was an issue, like he always did. But if you look at the painting, the virgin is sort of laying, and she looks a little bit like bloated, like she's been dead for a while. And that's unflattering. They didn't like that. But they also were like, did you actually paint an actually deceased woman? And so it was debated that he like actually went down to like the morgue or whatever and actually painted a dead woman because his stuff is so realistic that they're fairly sure that he's looking at an actual model of a dead person. Problems with that.
So they thought maybe he was gross for looking at a dead body, but really that just is dedicated to his craft.
It's Caravaggio, man. So he's guilty before proven innocent.
Yeah, everybody's gonna assume the worst.
I mean, because he proves time and time again
the worst
that he is the worst.
Yeah. Now you're starting to understand why I like him so much. But he delivers the painting, and as soon as it is delivered, it is immediately rejected. And this is another very heavy blow to his pride. And so he's becoming more and more and more volatile. So then, in May of 1606, the 28th to be exact, Caravaggio had a run-in with his longtime enemy, Ranuccio Tomassoni.
The guy that wrote a book about him?
No, that's a different guy.
Oh, okay.
No, this is, if you remember, a lot earlier, like Filipina or whatever her name is, that was her pimp, and she like went to jail or went to court. And everyone's like, he's such a nice guy. And Caravaggio was like, he's my nemesis. And they hated each other forever. So, they went out to the tennis courts, which do you remember the purpose of tennis matches most of the time?
Yeah. It was a nice, even, flat ground for dueling.
Duels, yes. So they went to the tennis court to have a tennis match. And apparently things got out of hand. One insult led to another insult.
Hold on. They went to the place to duel with swords, and somehow things got out of hand.
Yeah. Well, because you're having to sort of read a little bit into the court cases, the court trials, court transcripts. Hiya.
You got
it. Because they continually refer to it as a tennis match.
Okay.
Because dueling, remember, is illegal. So they're calling it a tennis match that got out of hand.
The court is, or the people involved?
The
people testifying are calling it a tennis match.
So they were like, Caravaggio was like, hey, my worst enemy, should we go play some tennis? A friendly game of tennis with me and my worst enemy in the whole world that I want to murder?
Yeah. Except that it was the other guy that called out Caravaggio. So Caravaggio did not initiate this fight.
Oh.
But he
For the
sure
first time.
as heck ended it.
Oh.
So they're doing their match, and it comes to blows, obviously, with swords. And we all know Caravaggio is an amazing swordsman. And with their witnesses and their seconds present, Caravaggio cuts the other guy's thigh. Which, if you cut the right place in the thigh, you can bleed out in seconds.
Yep.
Which is exactly what happened.
Femoral artery.
Yeah, he nicked it or cut it entirely, but he got the guy's thigh and he bled out there on the court and died. So
it's not
that is
an
a
easy
little
thing
out of
to
hand.
nick.
Yeah.
Though,
It's on the inside.
It's on the inside.
Yeah.
So I would imagine it was not an oops sort of moment.
I like the idea of the cops showing up. One guy just in a huge pool of blood, and Caravaggio is just holding a tennis racket. Well, that thing's got out of hand. That's it. He's got a wicked self, and I returned it straight to his femoral artery. They're like, sir,
that is not how it happened.
There's blood everywhere. And he's like, I know, the guy's full of it, and it's everywhere.
Now he's not so full of it.
He's the worst tennis player. Why did I even do tennis with this guy? I'm doing chess next time.
Yeah, it's a lot less dangerous. So, many of the men ran, but there was a few that testified for both sides. But again, altogether, there was 8 men, so 4 per side. Caravaggio and the other guy, and their second, and then the 2 witnesses per guy. So, Caravaggio clearly won, but he had also murdered somebody. So, he was injured fairly severely, not nearly as severely as the other guy, because the other guy died. But he did not have time to spare. He knew that they were going to be coming for him for this. So he packed everything he could and he fled that same night and he left Rome. And this sort of marks the slow decline to his end. Because it's like I originally, like in college, I thought it was a pretty quick, like he got exiled and then he died. But it is not nearly that. It took a few years for him to like meet his end. But it was not a boring end for sure. So, he flees Rome because he's wanted for murder. And he goes to Naples. Is that how you say it? Naples?
Yes.
Naples.
He goes to Naples where he actually finds quite a measure of success there. This
decline is starting off good.
It's, yeah. Which is so interesting because he has so many like really extreme ups and really extreme downs during this point. And within 4 days of being gone, he's accused of a second attempted murder of his rival, who is also writing the book.
In Naples?
So what they're saying is what his rival is claiming is that Caravaggio paid somebody else to murder him. But he didn't get killed, obviously. So while this is all going on, his rival, like Baglione or whatever his name is rising up in the ranks and is getting more commissions, and he receives that gold chain because he's been doing really well. And that's like a huge thing for artists. Is to be gifted a golden chain at this time. Nobody's gifted.
It probably would still be a big deal.
Yeah. Nobody's gifted me a gold
golden
chain. Although I haven't made anything for the Pope, so probably why.
You need to do that first.
Yeah. In addition to Baglione doing well, he's like running for different political offices and political things, and he's doing well. And so he claimed that somebody tried to murder him, and even though they couldn't prove that somebody did, he was certain that Caravaggio had set it up. So he gets accused of attempted murder there.
I'm going to pop in here and say, after carefully analyzing Caravaggio, I don't think he would send somebody else.
I thought the same thing. I was like...
But yeah, I can't imagine.
Like, I want him to go up to
ego that he has shown in his actions.
There's no way.
Why would he send someone else?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, I want him to be like, if I wanted you dead, you'd be dead.
Maybe he sent someone else as an insult, like a child. And he was like, this is what I think of you. And
Not
it's a Girl Scout.
So he's got that kind of hanging over him, and he's trying to actively lobby to get pardoned for his...
tennis match that went awry.
Yes. And again, he's got friends in high places with connections, especially the Pope's nephew, because the Pope's nephew loves his artwork. And so as an attempt to gain this pardon, he paints a painting for the Pope's nephew, which is David with the head of Goliath. So I want you to go ahead and look up that one.
Oh,
while you're doing that.
To now.
Yeah. While you're doing that, Josh, what's in the photo?
What's in the photo? Oh my gosh, I know exactly what it's going to be. It's going to be Goliath standing on David's head.
You're so close. You're so close. So it's a painting of David, and he's holding Goliath's severed head.
Are there multiple versions of it?
Look up the one with Caravaggio.
Yeah.
He just has the one.
Is that Caravaggio as Goliath?
Yes! As a way, they think, as a way to, like, show his, like, remorse and that he understands his guilt, but he is, like, sacrificing himself or whatever. He paints his own head as the severed head of Goliath.
He thinks he's so great. He's freaking Goliath.
I don't think that's what he was going for. And he sends that as a gift to try and earn his way into being forgiven and given a pardon so that he can come back to Rome.
That's all it takes.
Is a painting.
A picture of me decapitated.
But, like, it's a big thing to just, like, pardon somebody that just murdered somebody.
Mm-hmm.
So he can't...
Seems like it should be.
Yeah, you would think. So he is staying in Naples. He's receiving commissions, and people there adore him. So he receives commissions that are like some of his biggest commissions he ever received. One of them is the 7 Acts of Mercy. And there was basically a chapel that was built with the anticipation of having this altarpiece, which originally was supposed to be 7 different panels, but Caravaggio combined all 7 Acts of Mercy into one panel. And I imagine it's because he didn't want to do 7, but what do I know? He's finding quite a bit of success in Naples, but then he makes a move that not a lot of people were sure why he did it. But I'm going to kind of talk about what we think the reasons were. So he left for Malta, which is actually further from Rome instead of closer. People thought that he would only move closer to Rome because he was desperate to get back to Rome.
Yeah.
And there's not any notes specifically from Caravaggio, but here's what they thought. This is the reason why. Because his nemesis, Baglione or whatever, he was doing so well and was essentially like noted or knighted by the Pope. You can get like a knighthood of sorts. It's like knighthood adjacent. If you're amazing at stuff. And so he was getting all these accolades, all these other painters were getting all these other accolades. And Caravaggio, as you just reminded us all, has an immense ego. And he is very prideful. And they believe that the idea of him going back to Rome as like this lesser kind of like tail between your legs, I'm sorry kind of guy, was like, he could not handle that idea. And he's always been really good at swordplay, and they think maybe he was interested in doing, like knight stuff because he was so interested in swordplay. And this will all connect here in a second. And remember the Colonna family that he had connections with?
Vaguely. So
that's like from his mother's side. And they kind of swoop in and save him frequently. So they had a nephew that did crimes that were so bad that they were never actually fully recorded because they were like, these crimes are too egregious to write down. Just know that he is a terrible human. And they were like, we got to fix this because we can't have this kind of shame in our family. So they sent him to Malta to become a knight. There's like a brotherhood of knights there for the church. And he becomes a knight. And then he serves with incredible honor and comes back with this glory. And they're like, that's amazing. It's such a fix. And so what they think is that the Colonna family was like, maybe this will work for Caravaggio and he can, sort his life out, get pardoned, and go back to Rome as a knight. And Caravaggio is like, I could be a knight. I'd be knighted. It'd be great. So they think that's why he went to Malta. And it's sort of proved because he shows up in Malta. And shortly after arriving, he attends a banquet that's held for him and all the other, it's, in the writing, they're like, that was held for him, but also all the other possible knights. So I don't think it was held for him. I think it was held for all the prospective knights. He just was also one of them. And so he's like there with the prospective knights. And on that very night, one of the other, because there's like painters and other people and stuff, one of the younger knights that are actually like a knight of the order made a joke about a painter that had 2 wives. And being part of this Brotherhood of Knights, you had incredibly strict rules. In addition, the area that they were in Malta, Valletta, was also very, very strict. And so somebody was like, who has 2 wives? And then they were like, what do you mean? They're like, that's explicitly illegal. You cannot have more than 2 wives. And so an inquisition was made about this painter that had 2 wives, and he was taken to court. And like, we know that this inquisition happened because there's court records of Caravaggio being questioned about it. But when he's questioned, he responds in his usual way. He said, about that which you ask me, most reverend sir, I know nothing except that in the house of the knight Fra Giacomo de Marchese, there was staying a Greek painter who arrived with the galleys. But about the rest, I have nothing to say concerning what the knight said, nor about anything which concerns the holy office of the Inquisition. Also, I know nothing of the name of the said painter, nor of which country he claims to be homeland. So he just sort of was like, I don't know anything, and I don't know anything. Already,
but maybe he did know something.
He might have.
Yeah.
But I think the real thing that's important to take away from this is like how strict the laws are, and we know our boy doesn't do well with laws. So it seems like this is going to be an uphill battle for him. He did, however, establish a workshop, and his work was impressing all of the people there. And so he painted possibly 3 paintings. There was Saint Jerome writing, which is one of my favorites.
And it's a picture of Saint Jerome riding an elephant.
No, writing.
Oh, that was a trick question.
And I think it's a really beautiful painting. And the painting was bequeathed to the chapel of the Italian League and now hangs in the co-cathedral of St. John in Valletta after it survived a heist. Somebody stole it in 1985. It was cut from its frame.
Ooh, and it's still gone?
No, they have it now.
Oh, okay.
They got it back. But there was a whole heist of it, which we're not going to do an episode about it because if I do another Caravaggio episode, people will throw tables at me.
No, do it. Because this isn't about Caravaggio. This is about the heist.
Yeah.
It's about Nicolas Cage.
But in the winter of 1607, Caravaggio was approached to paint the likeness of one of the most senior and distinguished knights of Malta, Fra Antonio Martelli. Fra means brother. It's noted as one of the most impressive 17th century portraits. Not just his, but 17th century. So by November or December, Caravaggio was painting for the Grandmaster himself. And according to Bellori, who was another author person, he depicted the Grandmaster 2 different ways, both seated and standing with a page, but only the standing with the page survives. So there's that. And then he took on his largest piece yet, which was the beheading of St. John, which, as you can imagine, is depicting the beheading of St. John. It's over 10 feet tall, and he gifted it to the order of St. John. Its completion marked his entry into the Brotherhood. So this was an important piece because we see for the first time the F in front of his signature on the painting, which means that it's like brother Caravaggio. So he's like accepted into the order. He also signed it in red, like blood. And it's conjectured, because again, we don't have any notes from Caravaggio himself, but it's conjectured that he signed it in red because he kind of saw it as like the blood of Christ and how he's absolved of his sins. And now he can go back to Rome, no longer a criminal, but instead a proud Christian soldier. So in addition to being accepted into the Brotherhood, he was also gifted a golden chain.
Dang.
He received his golden chain.
Let's steal that from his tomb.
However, he immediately starts to struggle with laws again.
I'm shocked
so-
by this development.
Yeah. So again, it was like a risk the Colonna family had made to try and get him there and get him the knighthood to try and set him straight, but it did not pay off for them. Within a few short weeks of receiving his knighthood, he had an altercation with another knight where he severely injured him, and once again they put Caravaggio in jail. So here,
It seems like he just over and over again, he'll like set a goal and then he like works so hard to get it, and then the second he has it, he's just like accomplished, and just flubs everything else.
yeah, and it happens over and over and over again. So here he is in prison, and let me describe the prison to you. So it is like a cave in the ground, like the only entrance
where caves usually are.
underground. Give me a minute.
It was a cave in the sky.
Underground. So the only entrance was from above with a
Okay.
steel grate.
A pit.
A pit. Maybe it was a pit.
Ooh, a pit.
There we go. It's a pit.
Oh my gosh, was that where Batman was?
Yes.
And then he had to learn how to climb out.
Yeah.
Yeah, he
After
did some
Bane
spelunking.
broke his back.
Yeah.
He fixed his back by climbing out of a hole.
Yeah. And he goes, I'm Caravaggio.
And he goes, ooh, ah, ah, ah. They sing a song for him.
It's sort of like this Alcatrazzian thing where it's just impossible to escape. Nobody's ever done it. And it's on the water side, so
No, but he has ever done it before.
for a half second, I thought you had something important to say, and then I remembered.
Everything I say is so important.
I'm
So-
just going to have a whole episode of things that I cut that Josh does.
He's got to get his Batman feet.
Okay. Anyways, so not only is he locked down there fairly securely, but it is butted up to water. So he would have to not only escape, but he would have to have like a boatman ready and an escape plan, and it would have to happen when the guards aren't there and all this other kind of stuff. And they're like, nobody,
So, wait.
How would there be water around the pit?
like around the like,
Wouldn't it go in the pit?
no, it's
So
like
is
a
it like
mountain.
a little island?
It is like up to the edge of the water, like there's like cliffs and stuff, and it's like dug into that like above ground, but still under. It's all above ground,
Okay.
but it's dug into the above ground.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
I guess. I think I'm following you.
Ground is the part where your feet usually go.
Yeah. So if you imagine, it's like the prison is on like a cliff side.
Okay.
Sure.
So it's like,
Like the
Count of Monte Cristo.
Yeah.
Yes, that's it. Count of Monte Cristo style, but the door is it in the ceiling in Count of Monte Cristo?
No, not to the cell that he's in.
Yeah. So Count of Monte Cristo style, but the ceiling has the door, not the
Like
wall.
Batman.
Yeah.
So it's like Count of Monte Cristo and Batman had a baby.
Together.
And
Their
that
prison
baby
did.
was Caravaggio.
Yeah.
No, that was their prison had a
prison's
baby,
got
and the
nasty.
prison, and the prison is what's holding Caravaggio. So nobody,
So he was in that prison hole.
yes, and nobody had ever like escaped before, but our boy does it.
Yep.
So
You just got to give him a goal. He
yeah, and
needs a goal.
and he achieves it. So he got out and somehow found a boatman to take him to Syracuse. So
Does he leave a dummy of himself
you know,
in his bed, meticulously painted
He
No.
painted the floor
to look
To
like
look
him
like
so it
him.
looks
laying-
like he's laying there
he's like
on it.
PETA in
Open up
in Hunger Games.
He's like, I've been practicing my whole life for this moment.
He's been keeping all of the like ketchup and sauces that they give him to use for paint.
They do a lot of that in prison.
Yeah.
Here's a steak.
Here's your
with some
ketchup, stupid Caravaggio.
They're like in Italy, so food is good, so they don't need ketchup. So it really is an insult. Like, oh, you have to have ketchup in the
Yeah.
food. So anyways, he finds his way to Syracuse, and he is a very wanted man now, but not in a good way.
Yeah.
So in October of 1608, he contacted a painter that was out there, and he was able to successfully make a studio with this guy out there and his remaining contacts. And right now, the Colonna family really isn't kind of talking to him. And that's because the Colonna family had been his connection, and they can't be connected with that because
He's gone too far.
He's gone too far. So much so that the Brotherhood, they took him to trial again because he escaped prison, and they threw him out of the knighthood club because he was no good and broke all the rules. So they're like, you're not a knight anymore. But now he's down in Syracuse, and he makes, another studio for himself and starts painting. And once again, the people there are well aware of his paintings and love him. And so he starts getting commissions from the officials in that area. And so as long as he's protected by those government officials, the knights can't come in and arrest him because he's got like diplomatic protection. So he stays there for a while, painting, but then he goes back to Nepal. And what they think happened was that the Colonna family somehow figured out how to smooth things over with the knights. And through that negotiation, he was forgiven and was able to come back to Nepal's to the Colonna family. And so that knighthood didn't work to get him back into Rome. So he sort of doubles his effort again to get his pardon from Rome, like through the nephew and that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Because he didn't get it the first time. And so now that he's sort of gone this very circuitous route that didn't work, he's back again to Nepal's to try and figure it out. And so when he returns, he finds that the Colonna family has smoothed things over, and he's kind of restored his favor with the knights again. And it turns out he hears that he is getting a pardon he finally gets word that he's getting a pardon from the Pope. And so he feels like things are really kind of turning around. And so he's, feeling much better about how things are going. And so he goes into a tavern, and he is sort of celebrating a little bit. So he lets his guard down.
He met his goal.
He got
his pardon.
Let his guard down a little bit. And there was a group of knights that, or at least they think they were knights, that were unhappy that he was forgiven. And as soon as he left, they ambushed him. And there was at that time, this was in October of 1609. So there was a newspaper that said that the Caravaggio was murdered. But then there was others that just say that it was disfigured. But the murder rumors were exaggerated because he did actually survive. He was severely injured though. So from here, he's severely injured, but he's still alive, and he still needs to get to Rome. And he also is constantly telling people things like, my enemies are following me, and he's like getting very paranoid.
Getting implies that he was not previously paranoid.
I mean, he's kind of always, but it's like getting worse, I guess.
Getting aggravated. It's getting worse.
So then in late July, it said that Caravaggio officially received the long-awaited pardon. So he had only kind of heard that he was getting the pardon before. Now he's like, officially, I'm getting pardoned. I'm getting the heck out of here. I'm headed to Rome. His nemesis in his book writes that it's debated that he actually did receive the pardon and that he was just preemptively heading to Rome. But either way, he was headed back to Rome. So Caravaggio secures himself a ship, and this is right after the ambush that a few months later. So he's still not doing great. But he finds himself a ship. He puts all his paintings on his ships, all of his stuff. He gets on the ship, and it takes off, and it has to land because Caravaggio, or because they have to land for whatever reasons boats have to land. I don't know, resupply or whatever. But where they land, Caravaggio gets arrested. And so the boat does not wait for him and takes off. So he pays his way to get out of jail that night, and the boat is gone, and he's got to catch up with the boat because all of his stuff is on the boat. So, most likely, again, we're not sure, but most likely he procures himself a horse, and he knows where the boat is going to stop next because he was supposed to be on the boat. And so if he rides like all day and all night, he should be able to get there at the same time that the boat does so that he can get back on the boat with his stuff and get back to Rome. And so he takes off and he makes it. He makes it to the next port right before the boat gets there. So he gets there, lays down or whatever he does. But he's not feeling well because he, is still recovering from being ambushed by a bunch of guys. It is likely that he had like some pneumonia or some illness. And before the boat officially lands and gets there, he passes away from his efforts to make it back to the boat. So Deodato Gentil, Bishop of Caserta, wrote in a letter, poor Caravaggio did not die at Procida, which they thought it was, but at Port Ecrole, I'm sorry, because having arrived with the Feluccia, which is the name of the ship, in which he went to Palo, he was incarcerated by the captain there. In the uproar, the Feluccia went back out into the open sea and returned to Naples. Caravaggio stayed in a prison, then freed himself by paying over a huge sum of money and perhaps on foot, more likely on a horse. Like I put in parentheses because this guy has said perhaps on foot, but based on the distance, they say he had to be on a horse. Reached the port by land where, falling ill, he departed this life. And so because, this is also bizarre, because he passed away in this port at that time, there was a strike. All the priests in the area were on strike. So there was nobody getting buried with rites or with records. And so he was buried nearby in an unmarked grave with no records. And since the ship had no reason to continue to Rome, it went back to Nepal with all of his stuff. And so the Colonna family, who heard about it, took all of his stuff, but then the knighthood tried to steal some stuff back because they were like, he was in good standing with us. So immediately after he died, like nobody went to go find his body or like get him a grave, but they squabbled over his paintings that he had left. And that was the end of our famous, beloved, beautiful, violent Caravaggio.
Oh, Caravaggio. So sad.
I feel like it would be a sad life.
How old was he when he died then?
What was it? 1609 when he died? Look, I don't know math. Somebody Google it.
Google?
Hey, Google. How old was Caravaggio when he died?
Caravaggio was 38 years old when he died in...
He was 38. That does not feel like very old.
Was
But
it?
he also like lived such a turbulent life. It's wild to me, the life that he lived. I would never live a life like that. But like the amazing, beautiful, wonderful things he created, and then the like absolutely terrible things he also did. And that's all in the same person. Like what a dichotomy.
I am blown away by how many times he was given second chances and things. I think that's not necessarily for me, though.
That's okay.
You know what? I do get the question all the time of who would you eat with? What artist would you like to have dinner with? Mm-hmm. And you know what I always say? I always say I'd want to do it with Caravaggio and order the artichokes and just watch the fireworks. I don't care about the conversation. I just want to see him go hog wild on some waiter.
Good answer. Good answer.
Oh, man. Not me. I hate it when people are mean to the servers.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
That's true. That is a red flag.
Yeah. Well, thank you for taking us on that wild 4-part ride.
Yeah. Thank you, guys. I feel like sometimes it's hard to appreciate art when you don't like immerse yourself in it. I have friends that like hated going to art museums and hated art and or like at least didn't understand it, so there's no appreciation, or like they never had a good moment with art. And so I appreciate that you guys sit here with me and make it the pod interesting to force people to listen and have these like moments with art, because it's like such an integral part of who I am. Like growing up, I just thought I was the dumb one in the family. Like, I was just kind of dumb. And
But the joke's on you. It was me the whole time.
well, growing up, I didn't, I thought for sure it was me. But the one thing that I always felt like didn't ever matter how dumb or how smart I was when I could sit and sketch in my sketchbook. I always felt like I was, lost in that moment, and it just felt good. And then as I looked at art, I could start appreciating what they were doing and like, how did they do that? How can I mimic that? And then I saw more and more art and was seeing not just like, how did they paint this? How did they experience, like, how did they do this? But like, where are they from? Like, how did they come up with the ideas? Like, how was this part of their culture? How was it received? And so I sort of started to teach myself how, like you have to learn to read. I think you have to learn to art, like to understand art and appreciate art. And I think there's lots of ways of going about it. And I had a very personal, like interactive way of doing it. And I think the pod allows, at least for me, to give an opportunity for people to have an interaction with art that allows them to see ways of making it more valuable to them, to like have a personal connection. So maybe the next time they go to the museum, they think like, who was this person? Why did they paint it? How did they paint it? Like, what was the life, the culture, the experience they had? So that there's more to it than just looking at something, but they're experiencing something and having an interaction with the artist. And I think even if you don't know anything about art, just giving yourself that opportunity to have that personal interaction is of value. And so even though it was 4 episodes long, I appreciate that you guys let me, and like the listeners and you two all gave me the time to like give you an opportunity to have an experience with Caravaggio and his art, and then maybe learn how to have experiences with other artists. So there we go.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I think what you're doing is great, Kelly. Like, I don't think that I'll always appreciate every piece of art when I learn more about it, but that what you're saying, like, that rings true. That there is value to be found in learning about something, and I'm gonna draw this parallel that you can absolutely cut out because, like, not another Little Prince reference. But it is my favorite part of the Little Prince is when he comes across the fox and is asking the prince to tame him. And the little prince wants to know, like, why do you want to be tamed? And he's like, so that you'll become important to me. And like, look at this field of wheat. I don't care about wheat. I don't eat wheat. It means nothing to me. But if you tame me, and then when you're gone, I'll look at the wheat and it will remind me of your hair. And now the wheat has meaning and value to me. And so that's kind of like what you're doing is, helping Josh and myself and anybody who's listening, who takes the time to really internalize what you're saying. Like, you're adding value and meaning to things that maybe didn't have any value or meaning to them before. Yeah.
Thank you. I think that was a good parallel, Brandon. That was good. So yeah, but we're going to wrap up this 4-part, and I promise it's not a 5th. There's not anything else to talk about with Caravaggio. And so thanks again for coming. And really, like, he has not made it glamorous to commit crimes. So do art, but don't do any crimes.
Okay, before everybody turns us off.
Oh,
The Godfather?
So before we close out, our next episode, so in 2 weeks, we're going to go over The Godfather. So if you want to be in the know and you haven't seen The Godfather, watch The Godfather. And I'm going to talk about things that people don't know about it.
This is the spoiler warning. So this is telling you, go watch The Godfather if you don't want to be spoiled. If you don't care about spoilers, then just listen to us talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sure.
It's been out long enough that it's okay for us to talk about it.
Yeah.
So there we go. Thanks for stopping by. Watch The Godfather so that you'll be ready for next week's episode. And that's it. Do some art. Don't do crime. Bye.
Keep it real, playa.
What?
All right, fine. Bye. Bye.
Bye. I hear that's how you know.
Get out of here.
Go on, get. Scat.
Don't you? I don't want you anymore.
Just go home.
Nicely jobbed. About to get tussed. So let me do the ad read now. It's time. It's the end of the show. It's time for the final ad read.
Okay, let's hear it.
Here it is.
Do you ever find yourself awake in the middle of the day, wandering around in a haze, going, "Why don't I understand anything? Why is everything confusing? I'm so tired." Have you ever thought maybe you should sleep at night, you dingus?